Hello, my name is Chris and I'm a U-Haul hitch professional. If you're planning on towing a trailer with your Ford Explorer, then you're going to need trailer wiring. It is required by the law. Now let's take a look at how we complete this install. You will need the following tools and supplies to complete this installation. Begin the installation by removing your cargo flooring. This subfloor is Velcroed on. With our flooring out of the way, we can now remove this rear scuff panel by gently lifting up. There is an electrical connection in the scuff panel. Remove this connector by depressing the tab and pulling out. You can now remove this side trim panel. We can now remove this tie hook by prying open the cap with a small flathead screwdriver and removing the bolt with an 8mm socket. Our tie down bracket is not actually removing from the trim, but only loosening the bolt, allowing us to pull the trim away from the vehicle. You can remove this cargo net tie down using a pair of pliers, and you can tape the jaws of the pliers to protect the plastic. We can now pry the side trim away. There's a clip under here. Use a trim panel tool to pop it loose. Pull away enough trim to allow you to access this tail light harness connection. Depress the tab and remove the connector. Now repeat this process for the passenger side. We're now ready to connect our wire harness. The yellow connector will go to the driver's side tail light. Just down here you can see that there's a ground screw. We're going to go ahead and ground the wire harness to that screw rather than drilling another hole. You can remove this screw using an 8mm socket. We can now pass the green connection to the passenger side of the vehicle and connect it in the taillight harness. You can now zip tie the excess green wire to the existing electrical connector using the provided zip ties. With the wire harness connections made, we're now ready to connect the power wire. So back here behind the driver's side rear tire, we're going to access a grommet, pull that loose, and then jump to the engine and run our power wire backwards. Up in the engine compartment, we're now ready to run our power wire backwards from the fuse panel on the driver's side of the vehicle. But first, let's disconnect the battery negative. Open up this trim panel, and we can use a 10mm socket to remove the negative connection. Tuck the negative connection behind the trim panel or use a zip tie to keep it free from the post. We're going to go ahead and access the fuse panel back here to get our power. Go ahead and remove this trim piece. Depress 2 tabs on this side and 1 single tab right here to lift out the fuse panel lid. Disconnect the nut down here with a 14mm socket. For this install, we're going to go ahead and use the U-Haul exclusive Power Wire 1. It is an OEM style braided power wire. It's going to help with some of the heat and components in the engine bay. Install the ring terminal on the power post and reinstall your 14mm nut. We're going to go ahead and route our fuse holder behind this trim over into here so we can get the power wire out to the rear of the vehicle. You can go ahead and close up your fuse panel now. Because we're using our pre-braided OEM style power wire, we're going to want to keep the braiding near the engine. So let's pass a fishing pole down, tape the wire to it, and bring it up, and utilize all the braiding all the way back. Pass the fishing pole down along the firewall, trying to find your hard metal brake lines behind the engine. Do be sure to avoid the steering column. Now route the power wire, zip tying to any hard lines or electrical connections you find to bring the power wire to the fuse holder. Insert the power wire into the fuse holder. We will now return to insert the fuse and cap later after the power wire has been fully installed. You can now route the power wire to the rear of the vehicle, following the hard metal brake lines, hiding in any trim panels you find along the way. At the rear of the vehicle, be sure to go up and over any cross-member supports, avoiding any all-wheel drive spinning components, as well as suspension components like springs and coils. With the power wire now successfully routed underneath the vehicle, we're going to use an extra length of wire to fish it up into the vehicle. Pass it through our previously removed grommet, tape your 12-volt power wire to it, and pull it back up. You can now make a small slit through the grommet to pass the power wire through. Now return the grommet to its seated position. You can now connect your power wire using a heat shrink butt connector. You can melt the heat shrink using a butane torch. Now use the provided double-sided sticky tape to hide the converter box somewhere in an out-of-the-way location. You can now decide where to place your 4-flat connector. Some customers, yourself, you may want it in the back of the vehicle, hidden in the trim panels, and it can be stretched out to the trailer or accessories, protected by the weather stripping. We are going to go, however, and route this out the vehicle and put it on a bracket. So let's go ahead and show you how to do that. Use the larger grommet that can be found near where we hid the converter box to route the 4-flat connector to the bumper. We're going to need to make a slit in the rubber grommet to pass the connector through. Now pass the 4-flat connector down and out under the vehicle and reseat the grommet. We can now reach in and pull our wire harness down. It is close to the tailpipe, so we're going to reach in and stick it over the bumper beam connection right here. We're now ready to mount the 4-flat connector to a bracket underneath the bumper. If you do not have one of these, you can pick it up at your nearest local U-Haul Hitch Center, or you could purchase one from the link in the description below. Choose the location for your mounting bracket and use it as a template to drill out 2 holes with a 3/16 drill bit. The bracket will come with provided hardware, but we will go ahead and use a rivet. You can now put the dust cover on your 4-flat connector, pass it through the bracket, and wiggle it into place. We can now hide this excess wire in the bumper. You can now insert your 10-amp fuse and cover the fuse holder with the cap. You can now reconnect the negative cable on the battery and reaffix your battery cover. You can now test the vehicle's functionality, confirming headlights, hazard lights, and brake lights. We are now ready to reassemble all the interior trim. That concludes trailer wiring on your Ford Explorer. Please remember to practice safe trailering. We can't wait to see you out there. If you have any questions about the products seen in this video, or if you'd like to schedule an installation with your local U-Haul Hitch professional, please visit us online at uhaulhitches.com. You can also download the U-Haul app using the link in the description for even more ways to manage your hitch and towing needs.